Good morning, everybody. This is Charlie with 4BZ Truth. I'm driving to work again, and I just realized that I have a lot of stuff bouncing around in my head in the morning, so I feel like I like to have an outlet every once in a while and just tell you guys how I feel and what's on my mind. But anyways, I was listening to a thing about Hanna and Barbera, the Cartoon Network. I grew up around all that stuff. It might even been a little bit before my time. Most of their stuff was like at its prime in the 60s and 70s, but I started thinking a little bit about influential people and their mark on the world. And I realized that a lot of what I'm trying to do with sharing my thoughts on YouTube is it's a forum where I can actually interact with people and influence somehow. Now, I'm not necessarily seeking any kind of popularity, or I really don't want to be famous. I do want to be influential. But I started thinking a lot about a lot of the past. Say for instance, some of the most attention-grabbing, things out there nowadays are like sports, or I don't know, just a lot of different stuff, cartoons or TV shows. Sometimes people like to reflect on old past things, like they somehow get some sort of nostalgia from reflecting on things of the past. But I was just talking to somebody yesterday that was 18 or 19 that I work with, and they rarely use Facebook because that's kind of like washed up. Instagram and Snapchat is like the main thing nowadays when it comes to social media. But she was also saying she didn't know anything about MySpace. She never even heard of it. It's like, wow, MySpace was like the main social media platform when I was in my 20s. So it's just funny to me how things kind of come and go, and an influence might have its heyday, but then eventually it kind of withers away and dwindles to nothing, except for a past memory. And some people may still remember it, but once those people are gone, it's basically gone when they're dead. It sounds pretty dark as I'm saying it, but I started thinking about some of the most influential people that are still, influential even from their death, or from their, whatever past. And, I'm starting to think that the most important, legacy that you might be able to have linger over time is going to be the things that are the most practical, in my opinion. So you have this show, or this episode that I watched about the history of Hanna-Barbera and how they basically lasted for about 30 plus years, and then they're snuffed out by all the other competition. And shows like that are interesting to me because there is a sense of nostalgia, because I grew up on like Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones and things like that. But it just makes me think about how sometimes popularity, and reflecting back on the whole thing about like sports, for instance. I mean, how many Super Bowls do you remember from the past? Do you remember last year's Super Bowl? Or do you remember a Super Bowl from 10 years ago? Let alone, the normal season games. Do you care about the games, like the second game in the season. I think a lot about like when I was a huge college football fan, and I'm from Boise, Idaho, and of course Boise State is like our team over here. And I think about a lot of the games that they played from way back when I was into it, and it was probably mid 2000s, 2010s. I started, the first game I ever went to was in 1999, when they were really not even that well known. But then I guess 2007 is when they really started being recognized. And now that season, when they were heading up to the Fiesta Bowl, it was an iconic season. And I remember a lot of the games that I was trying to pay attention to. Now, most sports fans hardly remember anything like that. So I was pretty adamant of a college football fan. I actually followed a lot of the players that went into the NFL and things like that. And it wasn't until I started thinking a lot of these really deep things and started realizing that the purpose of life is actually being hindered when I sit there and worry about football all the time. And then that kind of fizzled in my life, and I didn't really care as much about football anymore. And I started caring more about learning about our reality and what truth is and what deception is. And I started realizing that there are more pressing issues, and we have a limited time here. And now, what's your motivation when it comes to being influential? Are you trying to gain fame or popularity? For me, I mean, there's a lot of people, that grow up in school and stuff. They want to be part of the cool kids group. I kind of was one of those guys that would jump around from group to group. We'll just kind of bring back my high school days when I was kind of one of those guys that jumped around from one group to the next. I never really stayed put in a specific group of friends. I had friends all over, but I wasn't like necessarily an outcast. I was just somebody that didn't feel like I needed to have popularity, so I didn't really care to stick in with the groups that were considered popular. So but that whole concept of trying to be popular is kind of one of those things where you really start thinking about what other people think of you all the time, and it controls every little aspect of how you operate in your life. And that's when you start getting anxiety and things that control how you react to people and what they think of you and things like that. And I admit that I don't care about what most people think, but the people that are closest to me that are kind of like that, that nature of trying to impress, I find myself like I'm not measuring up to them in their standards. And it gives me a little anxiety, I have to admit. It makes me feel like I need to somehow measure up. I need to go back to college and get my master's degree or something, and have some lucrative career or whatever. And it's like, but when it's all said and done, I get sucked into that mindset, and then I become a slave to it. I become a slave to the thought of measuring up. And I often talk about the government or the shadow government, enslaving us. But really, it's just the control, the mind control aspects of setting a standard or planting seeds that manifest into something that we end up, it's not that they control us, it's that we allow that seed to manifest, and we're now zombies that we're infected. We're infected by this freaking disease of, the desire to measure up. I feel like I'm not good enough because I didn't get a degree, or I don't feel good enough because I don't make more than $50,000 a year. I don't feel like I'm good enough because, I don't participate in all the mainstream, stuff. Like getting all hyped up about football and, because I used to. So every once in a while I'll get in with these groups that are always talking about, like at work and stuff, they're talking about the players and, the draft's coming up. I want to see which players get drafted and my team and blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, I would have loved to engage in that conversation about 10 years ago. But now I don't give a freaking crap. And it kind of, in some ways, rubs these people the wrong way when I'm not engaged in what they're talking about. Because it's like people's desire to relate and connect is really important, which is really our nature to have relationship with people. But when you're driven with the wrong pursuit, or that seed of control that has manifested in your mind to follow the trendy mainstream stuff, then you start pushing those people away that don't care about it because you want to stick in with the mainstream crowd. And it's kind of a dynamic, honestly, it's, in my opinion, it's a deception that has really taken control of our society. And when people say, that whole thing about, I've heard people say the devil made me do it. My dad used to say all the time, the devil made me do it. And, it's obvious that people have more control over themselves than they realize, or maybe they do realize, but they like to have a scapegoat. They like to have something that they could say is, they can pass the buck and say it's not their fault or whatever. And I do it all the time when I'm like fighting with my wife or something. I try to be mindful of not doing that, but I notice it with a lot of people is they always try to find a way to, pass the buck and not have to be responsible for, things that, by the way, I'm sorry that I jumped from one topic to the next, but it seems like they're all kind of interconnected. So I somehow try to find a way to, come full circle and kind of reconnect all the topics, because there's patterns in everything and how this world operates. And when they say the devil is the owner of the world or whatever, it's not necessarily that he has all control, because anybody, see, like, I believe, and again, I talked about this on my last video, I don't necessarily believe the devil is a person, because the devil actually means the adversary, or Satan means the adversary, or devil actually might mean demon. Lucifer actually is a specific name of an angel or a cherub, and he was the light bearer. He was the one that was deceived and fell down from heaven and whatever. I believe that Lucifer is somebody that might still be an influence. But when it comes to the concepts of what the devil and Satan represent, really, in my opinion, they're a sower of seeds. They're like farmers. You know, when they say you reap what you sow. Well, if you sow seeds of, negativity or doubt or fear, it manifests as, feeling overwhelmed or feeling angry or just have a lot of anxiety, and it's hard to function. That's the way that it's controlling us or enslaving us, because when somebody says, some freaking conspiracy theorist like me, and I use that word just to appeal to the people that can't see a conspiracy for what it is and will shoot it down by labeling it conspiracy theory. I actually feel like I'm that person that sounds kind of psycho, and I've just identified to the things that are, what they are. And I'm not afraid to look at the information for what it is. So anyways, I don't know, when it's all said and done, all the stuff that I'm talking about is just people realizing who they are and the importance of what drives them. And I think it's really important to identify to the things that have a grip in our life, and like, what is it that motivates you? Sometimes I feel like I'm motivated to do, the bare minimum so that I get people off my back. That's a horrible way to look at things. I mean, I feel like when I'm involved in the things that I'm meant to do, I am passionate and I'm driven, and nothing can stop me sometimes. But then again, I get oppressed by other people's fear and anxiety and things like that, because they don't get it. They don't freaking understand what it is that is gripping their life, and then they start dragging other people down around them. Misery loves company. You gotta, if you're a person that has constant anxiety and it feels like other people around you are like, dude, or you feel like you don't have a lot of people that help you, or maybe just the approach that you think that people need to help you, like a sense of entitlement, I guess. It just, those kind of things. I don't know. If you guys have any thoughts, I like to limit my videos to about 20 minutes, because otherwise it seems like it's kind of long. Unless I have something really important to say, and I have to continue to dump my thoughts. But anyways, I feel like this kind of wraps me up where I'm at in this topic. So if you guys have any thoughts, here's a fire truck coming by. But I don't know. I love to talk about these deep issues, the important issues that need to be addressed, and I hope you guys get something out of it. And just if you guys operate from love and selflessness, get rid of the fear. I know it's not so easy sometimes, but love conquers all. I feel like if you stop worrying about what you want, start worrying about what other people need, and if there's any way that you can help them or serve others, believe it or not, that actually fills in a lot of void. I think that when they say love conquers all, or I think it also, the Bible says love conquers all fear, or something like that. you know, if you're being driven by love, fear kind of falls to the wayside. Love is kind of like the antidote that freaking cures that freaking disease. And not necessarily love that people give you, but love that you give others. Because that's really what it's about. It's not about how you can tell people how to serve you or let people know how you're best served. But think about how you can actually serve others. I don't know. I think that is kind of the key to life. But anyways, I'll just leave it at that. I love you guys, and I hope to hear from you in the comments. Please like this video, and please subscribe, share it on your Facebook page or whatever. I feel like, well, I'm starting to gain confidence when people tell me that my content needs to be heard, and I don't know why your channel's not bigger. And I don't know. I mean, I don't care about popularity. Maybe I haven't put the right tags on my videos or whatever, but anyways, who cares? If you guys want to support me, like and subscribe, and share on your social media. But we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.